Hi, this is Sally Wood for Be Inspired, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do this style of chair. I've done something similar in the past with the tool back and the seats, exposed arms and legs. I haven't so far shown you how to put the new Decorative Tacks in, so I'm sure there'll be something else of interest, and if I find that as I go along I will show you that as I take it to pieces. Let's get on with it. First thing I'm going to do is work up these tacks like this along here. All you have to do is pop the edge of your tack remover underneath, give it a few taps and it will just ease them up like that. It's quite an easy project. This lady doesn't need to keep any, so we'll be replacing them with a different colour. I can just pop these up and not worry how they come out. If I was keeping them, I would come in at two different angles so that I could keep this nail as straight as possible. Makes it easier to put them back in if you do that. This one is just twisting and it will come out at an angle like that. The next thing I'm going to work on is the bottom cloth. So I'm going to tap that out. I prefer to do one side at a time. Again, just pull these out as you get them done. Because I'm working in the living room on the floor, I'm going to have to tidy up, make sure I can really tidy up as I go. Some of these are a little bit awkward to get out. As I pull this down, the original people put the back tacking on underneath this. You can do it this way, but I was always told to put the back tacking on at the end if you need to, as just the final touch. That's entirely a personal thing. Again, just pull all of those out as I go. I sometimes just pull it and rip it so I can get further underneath. I can now start on here. Something these people have done is they've put this right hard up so the sewn line is actually on the edge of the chair, which you can do, but it's better if you put it closer. And the reason is they've put these staples so close that they're actually on the corner, which then breaks down the corner of the chair. So in order to make sure you don't cause any damage like that, is to make sure that this is in line. Either looks good, but as I say, you just got to be cautious about how much damage you're doing to a chair frame. If you do the stitching on the edge of the chair like that, then you do run the risk of putting the staples so close that you damage it. That's why I always put it so that that runs in line, but it's a personal choice. Usually this just comes up because it's folded around, but they have put this metal back tacking. Not the best thing, it works. Maybe they didn't realise that all they had to do is fold that underneath and pull it in tight like that, and they would have got a good look as well. Always crimp the ends of these in if you aren't going to reuse them, because they will cause damage. I always do this and I'll throw that away. Along here I'm just going to pull this out like this. This is just back tacking with teeth. It's quite nasty stuff, so just be very careful when you're pulling it out. I'm going to do that all the way up. I'm not sure if I can reuse this. It looks like it's been reused already. I always try to use things that are reusable. It cuts down on the cost of materials if you can. And not only that, if you can reuse some of these, especially if you're not in the upholstery business, because some things are a little bit difficult to get hold of. Now, what's slightly interesting is somebody glued this. You shouldn't really glue it because the glue can sometimes cause discoloration to fabric, not that it would on here. I think they glued it because it kept slipping. This kind of fabric, it's a little bit difficult to secure, so I'm sure they glued it so that they could do that. Then they would have the ability to tuck it behind here. You can't put pin marks in it. I don't know how experienced the upholsterer was. It's worth doing, I suppose, if you've got this kind of fabric, but just don't do it on a thinner fabric because it could discolour. It's really awkward to pull off. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see, but here the person who put this in has put a staple on each side of these holes, and that takes double the time to take out, and it's an absolute waste of time and effort. One for the upholsterer putting it in and one for the upholsterer taking it out. So just put them in one side, not both. Now the outside back has been removed, I'll carry on with these layers so that I can get the inside back on. Okay, so here's the arm. Usually you fold this under, but they have actually used that metal again. I wouldn't use it if I were you. You have to get it absolutely right.
which is a bit difficult. And because it's such a small piece, always make sure that you've secured them. Like I showed you before. This one should have been like this, where you can get your finger underneath. I don't know why they did it like that. Personally, I wouldn't. Pulling the materials back here, and they have, which they really shouldn't have done, stuck this onto the front side here. That is a big no-no. It should be attached on the side here, not on the front. So now I have to ease all of this out and hope I don't do any damage to the front of this chair. At the bottom and top it won't matter, but it absolutely matters by the arm. I won't even get started because it just irritates me when people do things that are so daft. But anyway, now whoever did this actually did 2 rows of staples. Got the first row out. I'm not sure if I can do this without any damage because this is just horrible. So much so I can't even see where the second row is. The first row got wedged in when the second row went in on top. So this is not good. And it's snapped, which probably means I have to do it exactly the same way as they've done it. I don't think I can rescue this. The thing is, there's not very much wood here to use as a lever because it's right on the edge. So don't do it this way. If you're ever in doubt of what you're doing, just do it the way the previous upholsterer did it. And I know this was upholstered later because she told me this wasn't the original cover. Pull that out, and that is the mess that's left behind. And it is totally ruined here. There's nothing much I can do. If you're doing a job, do it to the best of your ability. Don't mess it up. I don't know whether I can get that out. I'm wasting time. That's the thing, you end up wasting time on something. I'll have to look at it when I put it back together, so if I can mend any of that. I can paint that, make it dark. Whether I can get this one and the top one out, I don't know. I have to look. I might be able to fix that. You really need to put this where it's meant to be, not where you think it goes. I should imagine it's the same on the other side. One side's done like it, the other side will be. Here's the fabric for the seat. So I'm going to just pop that down there and tip the chair over. So here's a mark for the centre. I'm going to line up those, and I'm also going to put it so it runs along the bottom edge here. I'm only going to come out about 3 inches, 7 centimetres. The same that side. And I'm making sure that this pattern runs along there. I'm just going to infill. That's all for the front. I'm just going to push the fabric all the way to the back and then start pushing it underneath the back there, and I can pull it through to the other side. Here's my centre mark for the back. There's the mark here. Just going to pull that down and line the centre mark to the centre mark. Again, I'm only going to go about 3 inches either side, which is about 7 centimetres. I'm actually pulling it out as well as down. And again, infill. I've folded the fabric here so it's at a 45-degree angle, and I'm just going to cut in like this to this corner here. If I push it down into the corner like that, I can cut another 1/4 inch in without being in the wrong place. When you get there, I'm also going to cut back this. It should be within an inch of the corner, and the same on the other side. I take it out a little bit wider so I can cut it back in a while. Fold that down into there, fold this fabric underneath like that, and fold the fabric underneath that one and pull. And you can see there's a bit of a ripple, so I can actually take it a little bit closer, maybe about another 1/4 inch. Try again. If you have to do it 2 or 3 times, that is absolutely okay. I'd much rather advise you to take this slowly and do it a couple of times than to do it really quickly. I'm going to take it a little bit back because it's rippling from the back side. I've got it coming in here. I'm going to take it a little bit up from there. So it's like an upside down V, and that should go around there a lot easier. Let's have a look. That's pulled back. Yeah, I think that's right. Now all I'm going to do with that is to push it underneath all of this padding and wadding. Pull it out, you push it underneath and let the padding take it back into place. I think when that's gone on the other side, it'll be just where it needs to be because I'll be pulling it back. This is a little bit wide. I'll push that back underneath. I'm going to take off maybe 1/4 inch here, because if it's too wide it won't fold nicely, but if it's not wide enough it won't stay folded. So it's a little bit of a hit and miss thing. Again, pop that right underneath all of that wadding and bring it back, and now I can fold it and secure it. I'm going to pull the fabric into this side, start here and just bring it in slightly. So here the pattern is going to come towards here and then underneath. Make it as smooth as you can. And as you come back to this side, I've got to refold just that little bit underneath like that and really pull that in, but there's a lump there, so I'm going to push that back up. Make sure that the fold, as it comes in here, you've got the wadding underneath into it, just makes it a little bit fuller, and then make sure that that's as flat as you can make it against the arm of the chair. And as you can see, the fabric just curves down slightly and into place. This can be quite fiddly because you want it to twist slightly rather than to be lumpy on there. So you kind of bring it in and then fold it under so that it's nice and straight. This pattern just comes down slightly on this side and I'll make it match on the other side. Looks straight here. If not, I can roll that under later. Now you make sure that this is also at a 45-degree angle, and you can lift up this and you can see the corner of the leg, which is about here. I am going to cut in at an angle to the inside of that. You need to just wriggle it and push it around, and then you'll get where you want to go. And it takes 2 or 3 goes. Helps if your scissors are really sharp too. As I've pulled it, you can see where I've gone funky there, but I've still got a little bit further to go to get right into that corner. When you've done that, push the fabric down and towards the back, and this one comes around to the front. Kind of misaligned it, but I can correct that. You need to really go on this side when you're cutting it, so you've got enough to go around, and it's still not right. It will be hidden. When you come around this side, you need to just clip down so that it goes around both sides of the chair frame. I need to cut some of this off, so I'm just going to cut about 1/2 inch, 1/4 of an inch away from the edge, straight on up. Gets rid of that. Fold the fabric under like that so it's nice and neat. Not that anybody is ever going to see it until they take this off, and then just pull that back down as hard as you can into place and secure. I've reworked this slightly to come back. I need these lines to be more or less in a straight line. Pull that back just a little bit and round. I'm going to take another little clip there because that seems to be holding it up just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this line down so it's straight to here, and then pull that around the back and secure. I'm also going to bring this up. I'm going to secure it here like that. These lines here should really be going down straight, so try to keep that in a line if you can. I'm going to just pull this down in a straight line like this and secure it underneath. Pull it quite tight. Cut into the corner of the chair leg. It doesn't have to be perfect, just in there. I'm going to fold this back. I need to go a little bit further actually. You don't want to overcut it because you don't want it showing. There we go. This piece I'm going to just fold under like that, and this piece I'm actually going to cut back. So holding the fabric against the chair leg, I'm going to just cut about 1/4 of an inch down, and that's so I can fold that up and into that groove and secure it. And I'm just going to put one because the piping's going in here. Pull this down and into place. I think I'll cut that back as a little bit too much in there. There we go. That looks better. As I come along, I actually want the first 3 inches to be almost flat along here. It's really because of the shape of the chair. Now for the other side of the front, again, cut in at your 45-degree angle to the inside of the arm. Push it down, make sure that it goes down. If you cut straight in and don't push down to find out where you're going, you might miscut, and the whole idea is that it goes down in here. Take a chunk off here. The same on this side. It's better to be generous and then fix the problem than too tight and not be able to fix the problem. Pop that down there. Make sure it can go underneath. Still got a little bit further to go, but not by much. So I'm going to cut into like an upside down V like that, which helps it go around the corner better. Okay, perfect. The pattern, not that there's really one, comes down here across. I want it to go down more or less in the same place on this side. Fold everything up and around, push any lumps and bumps back. That's a bit sharp. I'll go and get some to add in. Actually, I'm not going to. I've just folded a piece of fabric like that, and I'm going to refold it in here like that. And that will work just as well, because I need something for the fabric to roll around. There we go, push that back. Run those two pieces together and fold them. I can just twist that into place and down. There we go, perfect. I'm not going to pull on the under piece because that will just pull out of place. I'm going to secure that. Pull this in. Again, I'm just going to pop that towards here. Not too tight. There's actually a gap in the wood, so I don't want it to be too obvious. And just notice that. And then the pattern here needs to be identical to the pattern on the other side. So I'm just going to gradually bring that like that. And that's the whole of the front done. Perfect. Another way to do the back is to cut along your fabric. I pull it as tight as I can down and put my finger on the other side, on the inside of the arm. And then I'm just going to cut up towards my finger. Just don't cut your fingers. It's a bit painful when you can't see what you're doing. I'll leave that for now. And then going from this side, that's how far I've cut up. Cut into the corner like that. It takes a couple of goes to get it exactly where you want it, because you're kind of unwinding the fabric at the same time. That's almost in that corner. That's that corner. And then I'm going to just cut into this corner, not too far, because I want it to come round. You see, that's given you a different look. The other one, I came in at 45 degrees and it's a little bit low. It's workable. Or you can do it this way and get it to come in a bit higher. So it's whichever you feel confident at doing. Pull that right in. Still need to go across a little bit. It's just jarring on the inside there. So I'm just going to cut a little bit there, and that should be perfect. What you've got to do now is to pull it into place and secure it along the back. So the side is folded, so it's nice and neat. So I'm going to make sure that this comes down in a straight line. That. Pull it in quite tight. I'm going to cut this in at an angle. Makes it a little bit easier to there. Fold this under. Make sure that that all comes down in a straight line. I need to take that just a little bit closer. A couple of threads. Fold that underneath like that. You trim that back just a little bit and pull that in. Then pull the other next to it. See if you can get this to go in an almost straight line. Just going to cut this back, fold that up and under and in, and just put a staple here to hold it. And then I'm going to put a couple of staples here, one up here, and that will hold that in place. I'll cut the piece for the back, and again, put my centre mark to my centre mark and staple. Smooth all of this down like that. Here's my centre mark. I'm going to try to get that as central as possible, and I'm just going to poke all of that through the bottom of the seat there. Needs a little bit of a tug actually, because it's really tight on this chair. My centre mark is there and my centre mark is here, so I actually got it quite close. I'm just going to pull all of this through both sides a fair amount. Line my centre mark up with the centre mark here and really pull that down and secure it. And I'm going to pull it into place about 3 inches, 7 centimetres one way. I managed to get all the rubbish out from here. It's dented and I've had to use marker pen to even out the colour, which is not good, but one of those things. So I've got my piece of fabric here and I'm going to fold that so it's along that edge as close as I can. I'm going to pop a staple in at the bottom, going across ways, and another one at the top as straight as I can and quite tight. You don't want it to be loose, and again crossways. And with a strip of back tacking, you pop that along here, level with the front edge of the arm. You don't want it going in front, you don't want it going behind, you just want it level. And then again, sideways. Because this is damaged on the front end, I haven't taken these staples too far forward because I don't want to create more problems. Pull this over, looks even on the front. I'm not going to pull it too much, just put one here and another one at the top. Just put a couple around the side. Pull this one into shape like that and staple it. Come round a little bit more of here, but I'm going to be stopping maybe a hand width in from the edge because I don't want to go too close. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. Make sure if there's a pattern here that it corresponds when you get round to the other side, and then you'll know that you're even. The back here I've put at an angle like that. I'm going to cut in towards the inside back of the chair, and again this is one of those that you have to push and pull and aim without really knowing where you're going. And then I can push that piece underneath to the back and that round. Once you've done that, pull the fabric, fold it over so it's got a nice edge, and staple it into position. And repeat on the other side. Now this would snap, so I'm colouring it. This is why you don't put the staples on the front. You need to colour it before you glue it. If you do it after you've glued, then the glue won't take to the wood. And I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to glue it in place. Nobody should be able to see that very easily. I'll put some black in as well into that corner. I really don't like mending things like this. Get the wood colours if you have to. Give that a few minutes to dry. I'm going to cut for this space here. Fold that back so it's midway. Just cut straight in to the centre. Leave it about an inch out. Cut in a big V like that. These are going to get altered as I start pulling it in. That should give you enough fabric to pop it in there and round and hide it. Got that in there. I could go up a little bit more. First of all, I'm going to see if I can fold it up and under there. And down and under there. I've got to just cut a little bit more into the top so that it goes around that arm, which means I am going to cut a little bit like that and a little bit like that so that it causes a rounder shape. I think that will work. I'm going to actually have to go down a little bit more of an angle so that I can tuck all of that in, down and round. I dislike these because you never know if you're going to succeed or mess it up. So that's the back here, and that will go around there. I've cut this back a little bit so that it will go round, not be too bulky. And when you're happy with that, secure it. And what you need to do is pull this in so it's almost straight and work your way down. And then the same with the back. I've shortened it slightly, folded everything round, and if you've got stripes or anything, just try to make sure that they all line up from here to here, and then you'll know that you've got everything in place. And again, I'm going to try to keep any lines or pattern equidistant as I go up, and then I know that everything's in line. I've worked to about maybe 20 centimetres, 10 inches somewhere. I'm just going to cut this back, not too close, because I need to be able to fold all of this. Cut it like that. Pull this around. The line of the chair is coming in here. First of all, I was pulling this way. Now I'm starting to pull this way. Close to the top, I'm going to put a little plate and then another one. And at the corner, another one. So it really ripples. I'm going to make sure that I can get a 90-degree angle from the top going down so that it follows the weave of the fabric. So you need to push that way and this one this way. So this piece I'm going to pull over again, right along there, and staple it. And then I'm going to just make sure that the line of the fabric goes in like that. I can't have this coming all the way down on the edge. It has to be moved slightly in like that, but as close to the edge of the corner here as possible. I'm going to pull it in at that angle, push down here and secure that. I don't need to put any here, it's taken it all in, so I'm quite pleased with that. I'll now work on the other side. Push all the wadding into place and pull that back. Then I'm going to secure top and bottom and on the back side. Just like here, this part you just have to tuck and cut and tuck until it's in place. I actually needed to put a little bit of padding in there just to bulk it out a little bit, but it's gone in quite nice. And now I'll finish the top of this side. And I'm going to cut some piping. I'm actually going to do it on a diagonal. I've just folded this edge along the selvage like that. Cut along this fold. Now, because I'm going to be stapling the piping on, I am actually going to cut it to, it's quite thin fabric, I'm actually going to cut it to 1 3/4. I usually do 1 1/2 if I'm sewing the piping in, and 2 if I'm stapling it, but this is quite thin fabric, so it's still going to give me a nice big flange when I want to staple it. If it was a thicker fabric, I would certainly do it at 2 inches. So I've got enough flange to staple the piping to the chair. The first thing I'm going to do is sew the piping together. I'm putting the first one right side up, second one right side down, and they're at right angles to each other. And then I'm going to sew from that corner to this corner. When I get to the end of that, I'm going to pop this one up and this one down again. They've just been cut that way, they're going to follow, but sometimes they don't. I run them as a long chain. It just keeps all of these pieces together while I'm working on the project. And I only make up piping as I need it, so this is a small amount and I'll be able to judge how much more I need once this has been used. So always make sure you've got the right side down. Sometimes it's awkward on fabric to tell. Now I'm going to swap my foot for a piping foot. It has a groove in it, it keeps the piping nice and tight. As a universal foot, it should fit most sewing machines. When making up the piping, put the piping cord down the centre, and I, not always, but usually try to start a little way back, and then I'm going to slide this under the foot like that, and extend the stitch to a number 5. I'm just going to sew this into position. Keep it tight. And that just means don't pull it because it's on the bias. Fold it over, try to keep the edges as close together as possible and sew it into place. When you come to a join, cut one section from another and then trim back to within 1/4 inch of your stitches. Flatten your seam out so it spreads the bulk of the seam like that. Place that over it and fold it and sew it through. And just make sure that is tight when you get there and even. And carry on to the end. I'm going to pop this on. The bottom of my piping is on the bottom of here. There's a little ridge at the bottom of the chair. So I'm going to pop that there. I'm also going to have the piping and my fingers running along the side of the chair like that. Staple it in place. I go sideways because I like to not block anything that's going in here. I'm just going to run that along so it's as straight as possible. Next section, pull it slightly tight. As I come up, I'm going to pull it tight, and that usually keeps this quite firm. Now that I've got here, I'm just going to follow the top of the chair around. You could, if you wanted to, cut some of the corner out. I'm going to just put one in the corner before I turn. That's to hold it tight. It will follow this quite nicely without needing to be cut. Just follow the shape of the chair. Work down the other side in a straight line. At the bottom, again, here's the base. That's where the bottom of my piping needs to go. There's a join there, so I'm going to have to be a little bit creative. I'm going to cut it about 1 inch below there, and I'll work all of that out when I put it in. But the reason you give a little bit of tautness to your piping is it helps it go in a straight line. This fabric kicks out a little bit, so I need to work on that, so I don't want to be stapling it any further down. And then I'll just infill here. So I'm just going to pop a couple of staples in at the bottom, pop it in here and on the corresponding side here. I don't want it going over the piping because then it'll get caught outside, and I don't want that to happen. This is actually a good way to get rid of extra stuff you've got. These here I'm going to rest along the bottom edge of my piping. I'm able to move the piping up and down slightly. It's really awkward to get the first one in actually, partly because of the weight. Put that up towards the corner there and secure it. You only need to go through one of the holes. Then let the wire follow the piping around. If you feel that your piping isn't right, like here, I might actually take those two out and redo it. I'll do that when I get there. Then I'll do my next section, which takes me to the center. Now, if any didn't go in properly, just pull them out because it's not going to hold this in place. and redo it. It might have done that because there's other staples underneath. That's why I tried to put my staples further in, but it just might have hit the aluminium and curled. Now, having checked all my staples, most of them went in really well. I am just going to fold this up to the piping so that I have enough room to fit the fabric down inside there. The Dacron, I'm just going to fill in. I usually put it close to the metal. I trim it back to the metal. Only don't cut the piping. It doesn't have to be perfect, nobody's going to see. I can just about make out where the centre mark is for here, which is there. With my centre mark here, I'm just going to pop that here. So it's level with the top of the piping. Stretch that out like that. Pop a pin by the piping, and then I'm going to do the same this side. I'm just going to pop a pin here, making sure that these lines are level. I'll change that one to that way. Now that's going to support that for now. Here's my centre mark here, and if I lift all of this up, here's my centre marks here. So I'm just going to fold that down across there and secure it underneath. Now I'm literally securing it. I'll probably take these out. I'm going to go along here. Make sure that the line is straight in both directions. All I've done is I've popped a few inches of fabric behind here, and I'm coming out towards the side. Try to keep your lines straight, which is a little bit difficult because it's rounded. I'll move this one out to the side here a bit more. And I'm going to cut down towards the piping but not on the piping, and up and around. This allows for the fabric to alter its shape. Again, I'm going to pop some more down. And you want it all behind, you don't want any fabric showing. And I'll pop it into place here. So I usually, depending on the fabric, I'll use another piece of fabric, and there, it's popped into place. And I'll work all the way across the other side too. In order to keep this straight, I'm actually going to pop this around the side. I think I need to cut a little bit more back on there. It's a little bit too generous. And again, just pop all of this in. It doesn't matter so long as everything's even in there. So sometimes you have to work one way and then work the other way just to get it nice and even. I'll take the pin out here and fold it like that. And again, just tap it. That's going to look pretty good. Now the trick to getting this even is actually the fact that you're pulling against the fabric at the bottom. So you really need to make sure that you have secured it on the opposite side of the side you're working on. Otherwise, you're just not going to get a good look. I'm going to peel back this by about an inch. Straighten it out. Fold the end under like that so it doesn't really show. Pop it in the corner like that. Make sure that the piping runs along the edge so it's level with the edge of the chair. Make it a little bit taut. As I come into this end, put my finger there and extend it about an inch. Cut it off, and again peel it back and cut it to length. Fold that under so it's hidden and staple into place. Put the bottom cloth on. I've just cut back here and on the other side because this has to slot into that groove. Do that. Cut back to about just under 1/4 of an inch from the stitching because you need a little bit of bulk there. At this point you could actually put glue in there and glue it into place. I should, if I keep it tight, not need to do that. And again, I'm going to pop the bottom cloth in. Now this is the bottom cloth that was used before. Once the bottom cloth's in, this is when I start putting the back tacking in. And it helps push the piping hard up against the seat. I'll cut it off to fit right here and get that in. To fit this corner in, I'm just going to cut back this a little bit. Also here, I'm going to pull this back, cut some of this back because I don't want too much in. And this is the underside. Fold that over and secure it. With this piping, peel that back like this. Now the piping itself is going to come just to the bottom there, like that. This is going to come down. I'm going to cut it, or am I going to cut it? Yeah, I'm just going to cut that off like this. I'm just going to cut that corner piece off because I think it's far enough down. The underside is just long enough to be caught in here. So I'm going to pop that down. I'm going to trim that back as well because I don't really need that much in there. That's just enough. Staple that into there. That's not moving now. Now I am going to cut this fabric back to just inside this leg. I need to come around a little bit like that. This piece, pull it in, it actually needs to go a little bit further. It's got to be really snug. So this piece is going to come underneath here and be pulled into place like that. And I can come along here. I need to keep any lines straight. Cut this little bit out, fold that under, and that also into place, and staple that too. So I've pulled this as tight as I can around and secured this, and that will hold everything into place. By the way, I did actually use the aluminium along the side like I did on the top. When putting nail heads in, find the center of the chair. I was always told to always start in the center. Now I'm going to mark that like this. So the first nail I'm going to pop in 1/4 of an inch above the border. First one in, measure the center of the first one 1/2 an inch, and then again measure up your 1/4 of an inch all the way along. It's time consuming. There are gadgets, but I don't really put enough of these in to warrant one of the gadgets. In fact, I can't even remember the last time I put decorative tacks in. I'm only human. They are going to wobble a little bit because I don't actually do them very often. You measure to your halfway, depending on the size of your tacks really. I mean, if you've got larger tacks, then work out where the middle is and then work till you're finished. Thank you for joining me on this project. I hope that I've been able to give you some useful information and tips. If you want to hear more from me, please subscribe, hit the bell button, and a few thumbs up would be absolutely brilliant. Helps me know how I'm getting on. And in the meantime, take care. See you later. Ciao.